or a call. Pastor Robinson's maternal grandmother passed away early Thursday morning. So be in prayer for him and his family as he suffers yet another loss in his life. This makes the fourth person since the beginning of the year that he's been close to that has passed away. I also want you to take a moment to look in your bulletin. There are many announcements. We'll have Bayshore Manor Ministry tomorrow. Wacky Wednesday this week at 6:30. Who said that? Wasn't one of them. So be sure and bring the children. Denise gives them a Bible lesson and a snack, and then they have an art project with Justin. So please be sure and have them here. The adults are doing a study on prayer, and this week we'll be looking at the Lord's Prayer. So please be here at 6:30. You'll see the other announcements that are coming up, but I particularly want to mention our clothing swap that's going to be this coming up Saturday, and it is an outreach event for our church. We want to reach as many ladies in the community as we can. Natalie, did you want to say something, or did you just want me to go ahead? Okay. And Natalie's our new outreach chairman, and this is her idea. Everybody has one of these brochures. Pass out this flyer on your block. We're going to be setting up for the clothing swap. What time on Fridays? 7? Is that good? Or is that good?
Yeah.
7 o'clock. If you can come and help us set up for it, even the guys can help set up. And then on Saturday, if you could be here at 11 o'clock, we plan to have a lot of fun with that and meet a lot of people in the neighborhood. Then you see the other announcements are there. And as you can tell, Sam and Ann, our campers on mission, will be heading home. And if you look around the church, you'll see so many improvements that they've made in the months that they've been here. To see them off, we're going to join together for lunch today if you can. We're going to go out to Shrimp Road Grill. It's at the very end of Shrimp Road, and if you don't know how to find it, you can see me after church, or we can carpool out there. But it's a lovely place, and we just want to have a chance to visit with them. And at the end of the service, I'd like Sam and Ann to stand at the front door, and as you leave, be able to greet them and say your goodbyes. Have I overlooked any announcements? No? And what happened? And if you're visiting with us and Pastor Robinson isn't here, things never go smooth. Please come back and be our guest again when things go more smoothly.
Thank you, Usher.
Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you for this new day. I pray your blessing on this offering, Lord. You declared it in your word. Give, and it shall come back. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Lord, we're joyful to be able to sow into something that's so everlasting and unending. In Jesus' name, we do it in faith.
Amen. Let us stand for the doxology.
Praise him above the heavenly host.
Now you can be seated. Alright, so Brother Daryl's going to be coming up here and singing, and I'm going to be running his music.
Good morning. Good morning. Prodigals home. Thank you for your prayers. You got me through it. You can bring this down just a little, just a hair. Never heard me say that before. That's good. That's good. All right. Thank you for giving your prayers for me. And some of y'all helped me with gas money and stuff while I was on the road. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving to the Lord. A little bit of music. That's it. Dreamed I went to heaven. You were all there with me. We walked upon the streets of gold beside the crystal sea. We heard the angels singing and someone called your name. You smiled and saw this young man. He was smiling as he came. He said, "Friend, you may not know me now." Then he said, "But wait. You used to teach my Sunday school when I was only 8. And every week you would say that prayer before that class would start. One day when you said that prayer, I asked Jesus in my heart. Thank you for giving to the Lord. But I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. I noticed. Then another man stood before you. He said, "Remember the time those missionaries came to your church, and the stories made you cry. You didn't have much money, but you gave it anyway. Well, Jesus took that gift you gave, and that's why I'm here today." You can help me. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. One by one they came, far as the eye could see. Each life somehow touched by your generosity. The little things you'd said and done, those sacrifices you made, unnoticed on the earth, but in heaven now proclaimed. Now I know up in heaven you're not supposed to cry. I'm almost sure there were tears in your eyes as Jesus took your hand. You stood before the Lord. He said, "My child, look around you. for great is your reward. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Hallelujah. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. I am so glad you gave.
Well, we didn't get to do we did the announcements, but we didn't shake hands and love each other. So make sure you do that before we leave, okay? We're on a roll, right? Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm not a preacher. Not ordained anyway, so I'll just let you know that. But God put a message in every one of us, and sometimes we just need to stand up and just tell it the way we feel it is and the way the Lord wants it to be. Tell you how it happened, that I decided that I would speak in church. Pastor took me after I made chief to pastor appreciation at the AME church in Key West, Florida. So what happened, that's a good story, right? So what happened was, anyway, the pastor, Reverend Lane, he asked me to speak at his church one day, and I was like, well, I don't even know where to start. What would I say? And he's like, well, if the Lord wants you to, he'll put something in your heart to say. And I've been carrying a poem with me in my heart and in my mind for a long time. And it's inside your bulletin, so you don't have to read it just yet. But it's called Rest If You Must, But Don't Quit. And there's an intro to a story. It's about a certain evangelist. His wife died. And he had been away from a lot of meetings. He hired his babysitter to take care of his two sons. Wherever he went, whenever he came back, he'd always give them a gift. Well, there was one time that he had forgot, or he made the kids think he did anyway. And he got home, and the kids were like, "Where's my gift, Daddy?" Dad said, "Well, I forgot it. But we can go to the store, and we can go pick anything out that you want." So they walk in the store, they see the counter, and it's got candy, and they're like, "Oh, I want all that candy." He's like, "No, let's take a look. Let's just look around. Let's just see. There might be something else better out there." And so they went down another aisle, and they see all these toys, and they're like, "That's what we want. Got guns and pistols and stuff. That's what boys want anyway, right? To shoot people and play cowboys and Indians." And the father's like, no, there's something better than that. So they go to the sporting goods, and they find a baseball bat and some gloves, and they want to throw a ball and hit the bat. And the father's like, no, let's keep looking around. So last thing, they get to the bicycle racks, and they look at it, and the father looks, and they look, and they see these two nice brand new bicycles, and he's like, "Is that what you want?" The boys are like, "Yes, that's what we want." And so he's like, "Okay." So they took those 10 speeds home with them. The story is that there's so much more that the Lord has to offer us, but we have to take time and to just look around and not jump into the first thing that you want. You have to be patient. All right, our message is from the book of Genesis, chapter 37, all the way through chapter 50. So we can't read it all at once, right? So I'm going to have to paraphrase it just a little bit. How many people know about Joseph? Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got about 10 people. Well, anyway, Joseph, he was the most favorite son of Jacob. Anybody know about Jacob? All right. Well, for the ones that don't know Jacob, he deceived his brother Esau into getting the blessing, and then he ran off into the wilderness, and then he wrestled with God, and he got a blessing from God, which was an angel anyway, and his name from Jacob got changed to Israel. And on that road through Genesis, he decides that God says he's going to have children and be father of many nations and all this. And through that, he marries 2 wives. One's named Rachel, the other one's named Leah. Well, Leah's first because she was older and she was supposed to get married first. The father-in-law makes a deal and says, you work 7 years, you get to have this daughter. And then in the end, Jacob got deceived. And so he had to get married to Leah. But then he worked another 7 years so that he could have Rachel. And Joseph is the 11th son from Jacob, but the first son from Rachel. And he became one of the favorite sons anyway. And that became a bad thing for his brothers, all 10 of them. And let me look at my notes. So anyway, Joseph, he gives a bad report on his brothers. He gives it back to Jacob, and Jacob is very happy that, well, he at least got a report. But then he gives Joseph a coat of many colors, and that meant some of us favoritism. But on top of that, that meant that he was going to be in the royal, he was going to have the lineage, the heritage of being in charge of all the other brothers when the father died, because somebody had to take charge of the I guess you could say the kingdom or everybody else. They have somebody to take charge of the heirs of their heritage if they have a lot of riches and power. So the brothers, they got mad, and they go off into the wilderness, and Jacob says, you know what? I need to know what's going on with my sons. So he sends Joseph. Well, out in far distance, Joseph's wearing this technicolor coat. Anyway, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, a colorful coat of many colors. And as he goes out there, the brothers plot. They see him on the far distance, and they say, there goes that no good brother of mine. He's a dreamer, because God gave him 2 dreams. There's a lot to the book, so you got to read it yourself. But if we go through and through, I can tell you about it, because that's all I did was read and study it. But anyway, his brothers plot, and they decide that they're going to kill him. And then one of the other brothers, Reuben, he decides that he's going to throw him into the pit. Well, they do. And that's just another story. A story about a donkey. The donkey fell into a pit one day, and all he did was whine and cry. And the only thing that they could do, the owner, he decided that he was going to fill that hole up with the old donkey, because the donkey couldn't save his life. So as they decided to throw dirt upon his back, the donkey would start to shake it, and he'd arch his back, and the dirt would fall from his back to his legs, and he'd pick his feet up. So later on, the owner, he's looking around, and he's thinking, why isn't this donkey crying anymore? So he looks down in the hole, he sees what he's doing. And so, long story short, all those neighbors, they're filling the hole until the donkey can just jump right out. Well, that's not what happened to Joseph. Joseph, his brothers decide that they're going to sell him into slavery, if I can say that word. So there's a traveling caravan, which is the Midian, well, first is the Ishmaelites, and then they finally make a deal with the Midianites, and they decide they're going to take him to Egypt and they're going to make some money off of him. First, the brothers, they sold him for 20 pieces of silver, which the Bible says wasn't worthy of a crippled slave, much less anybody. So the brothers didn't even consider him they considered him worthless. And they said, the only way we're going to get rid of this problem is if we send him away. So that's what they did. But as you read into it, if you look into it, you find out that everything that happens for a reason, just like in every one of our lives. So, as they pull him out of the pit, they send him to Egypt. He sold again to Potiphar, which was a wealthy, worked for a pharaoh, was the king of the guard or something like that. So he looks around, Potiphar does, and he figures it out that this guy is worth more to him to do better things than carrying bricks and mortar, and he puts him in charge of the household, of Potiphar's household. But later on, deception comes in. Potiphar's wife decides that she wants to take advantage of Joseph, seduce him, and so he runs off. Well, he left everything, even his clothes. So while he did that, then he got accused. When Potiphar came home, he was accused of doing bad things with Potiphar's wife. So then, guess what happens to him? He gets thrown in prison. And then on top of that, when he's in prison, the warden, he decides that, man, this guy isn't just no ordinary prisoner. I should put him in charge of my affairs. Anybody sees that. So when they put him in charge of his affairs, later on down the road, he talks to two people, which is a cupbearer and a baker. And they're like, we just had the worst dream of our lives. And what can we do? He's like, well, let me hear it. And so he told them, he said, well, doesn't God give the interpretations of dreams? And they said, yes. So, long story short, the cupbearer, 3 days later, he's restored back to his position, and the other one, his dream was interpreted. 3 days later, he'd be hanged or be put up on a stake. So he died. Long story, later on, down the road, the cupbearer is listening to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh just had a bad dream, and he doesn't have anybody in the kingdom to interpret it. Not even the astrologers and all these other people that he used to interpret dreams with whatever they used in those days. So the cupbearer finally speaks up and says, you know, there was this guy in prison. He could interpret your dreams for you. And so they send him off, they get Joseph, but turns out Joseph was still wearing the same clothes. So before you go see a king, you had to be clean shaven. You had to be nice clothes and everything. So they took him and prostrated him to him. He said, tell me your dream. And turns out that there were 7 years of good luck and 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And from that, then they decide, the Pharaoh says, you know, who in our kingdom has this kind of knowledge and this kind of stuff that will allow them to run the kingdom the way it should be, to collect these funds and to store it. So he gives the job to Joseph. So as you see from the step back, you see that there's a lot to it. Joseph's been through a lot of trials and tribulations, but he's getting what he deserves. And while he's there, the Pharaoh puts him second in charge of the kingdom of Egypt, and he's put in charge, and he's collecting all these things. And then later on down the road, Jacob sends his family, his sons, to go to Egypt to go collect some food and to take it back to their kingdom. Well, there's a lot of deception. The brothers deceive them. They don't know who this guy is. And Joseph sees that he knows who they are. So he doesn't trip them, but he sends them off on a wild goose chase to go back over there, bring his other brother back because he found out that Benjamin's alive, is the youngest of the family. But the story is that he didn't quit. And the same thing for us is that we shouldn't quit. Man, I thought this was going to be longer than it was. You guys are going to get out of here in a decent time today. I had a couple stories. I guess I could read them because it's sure taking a lot quicker than I thought. It's different when you're standing up here. There's a story about a Marine gunnery sergeant, and he was better known as Iron Mike. And he was on his third tour in Iraq, and he got the Legend of a Bomb Disposal. He was winning the Bronze Star for disabling 64 IEDs and destroying almost 1,000 and some ordnance on his second tour. Well, September 9th, he got blown up. He arrived at a chaotic scene where a bomb had killed 4 Marines. He chose not to wear the bulky bomb suit, protection suit. Anybody seen that? It's supposed to protect you and save your life. You know, if you've seen any of those movies. But this sucker, its diameter, it's like the Goodyear Stay Puft Man, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, he chose not to wear any of the protection suit except for just a helmet and to go out there and to cut these wires. And he cut the wires, but then as he cut those, he saw some more wires down there, and somebody detonated the bomb, and they blew him up. And then he started thinking about it. What am I going to do? His father was a Vietnam vet. He was already in a wheelchair. And then he thought he was going to be put in a wheelchair. But when they decided to cut the leggings off and everything, because that's the way they have to do it, they have to look at you, examine you from top to bottom to see if there is any damages. There was only a couple cuts and bruises, and he walked away from it. And then later on, he just said, you know, this one was for you. He saluted him in a different way than I can tell you. But it just seemed like that should be passed along, you know, because that's what our sailors and our soldiers and people on the IA duties are actually going through. And it kind of related to me because I used to drive Humvees when I was in Iraq, and first time I saw a trash heap, I stopped, and the guy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, they told me if I ever seen a thing of trash or anything, I need to stop and have somebody examine it." But we went through it anyway because you can't stop at everything that you see and the obstacles in your way. You just got to keep running through it. And well, that's how the poem came about. Not really, but in a way it did. There was this girl that was on my ship, and she had lost a grandmother. And you could tell that her life was she was stressed out about it, and she wasn't wanting to do her job anymore. And one day I asked the Lord, I want to get something for this girl because she's a hard worker for me, and I don't want her to lose hope and give up and say the heck with the Navy and heck with everything else. So I went to a store and I saw this poster, and believe it or not, it encouraged me more than it did her. But I used to put it on the back of our door in my deck office on my ship because, well, some job places you just need something to read and something to encourage you every single day of your life. You need to put words in you, just like the Bible. If you put the words in your heart, they'll still be in your heart, and you can remember it. You know, God will put something for you to remember it. One way, the poem's called "Rest If You Must, But Don't Quit." And it's in your book, in your bulletin. And it just touches me, so I wanted to touch you guys. It says, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, the road you're trudging on seems all uphill. When the funds are low and the debts are high, you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as some of us sometimes learns. As everyone, and many a failure turns about when they might have won had they stuck it out. When they might have won, that they stuck it out. Don't give up when the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have won the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night came down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit.
Amen.
And I can just, anytime I need to talk to somebody, I usually just, since I've been telling Pastor I was going to speak on something, I've just been pulling this out.